What's going on, guys? Jake Peffer here. Welcome back to Jake's Cinema Room. I'm continuing on with my Fast and Furious franchise rewatch with the upcoming release of Fast X. I am now up to part 8, The Fate of the Furious, which is an entry that is a little bit less than stellar. Unfortunately, this is one of the lower entries in the series. After 5 through 7 were such good entries, this is one that definitely takes a step back. There are still some enjoyable moments here and there, but all in all, it ends up being just not all that great of an entry in this particular series. This is the one that is after Paul Walker has unfortunately passed away, so his character Brian is no longer involved. He does get a small mention, as well as his wife in the movie, Mia, played by Jordana Brewster, who is also no longer present in this particular entry. But this is where Dominic, he gets basically blackmailed by a new villain named Cypher, played by Charlize Theron, and he turns on his team, he turns on his family, and nobody can understand why. She has to have something on him that is so insanely crazy that he would have to, turn his back on family. He always talks about family, so why is he now turning on his team? And yeah, we roll through this with some crazy action stunts, some humorous moments here and there, and some fun to be had. But all in all, like I said, this one ends up being a little bit disappointing because 7 left off such on a good note that honestly you could have almost ended the series there. With Paul Walker's passing and everything, 7 felt like a good finale almost. Obviously, this is a series that I like and enjoy. I like these characters, so getting to see them go on another mission, it's cool. But this one just doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like it's adding a whole lot. Yeah, we get to see, hey, what would happen if Dominic turned on his family? Makes for an interesting concept, I guess, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't play out all that well. I guess the execution behind it just isn't quite there. This movie has a different director this time in the director's chair, F. Gary Gray, who I think is actually a pretty solid director. He's worked in action before. He did the Italian Job remake, which I think is actually a pretty underrated action movie. So he's familiar with cars and car chases and action stunt pieces and things like that. And this movie comes off as him kind of not really feeling like he knows how to do action all that well. While there are some cool moments here and there throughout, and there are some big stunts and things like that, all of it just kind of feels very blah in a way. There's nothing here overly exciting that's making you get pumped like, oh my gosh, they're doing this thing, and hey, I got to get ready for the next movie because, what are they going to do next? And trust me, there are some stunts here that are impressive and things like that. But this movie almost kind of harkens back to part 4 for me, where in that movie it felt, even though like they were using some things that were practical, it felt like they went a little too heavy on the CGI. This movie kind of suffers from that a bit because of how over the top some of the stunts are getting. The CGI is ramped up a little bit more, and not all of it looks, all that bad necessarily. It's just in a lot of sequences it's pretty blatantly obvious that it's there. So, for me, it just doesn't feel quite as good overall in terms of the action. Performance-wise, everybody here is good again, but it kind of feels like everybody's almost sleepwalking through this movie. The only 2 standouts, really, I would say, are Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, who this is the movie where they kind of build them up as Hobbs and Shaw, and then, the next point in the series is them going off doing their spin-off movie, which is, a mixed bag for the most part. But in this particular entry, both of them work well, and they have some fun moments here and there, and they have a good, back and forth between the characters that is a welcome addition to this movie that's a little bit underwhelming. But yeah, all in all, I know the stakes are raised here because eventually what we find out is that Cypher is not only holding Elena, who's played by Elsa Pataki, who Dominic had a relationship with while Letty was, presumed dead. She has a baby that is apparently Dominic's baby, and that is another thing I have a big problem with, is since Letty came back into the picture was part 6, so now they have a baby together in part 8, which is taking place 2 movies later, but also it's taking place after Tokyo Drift. So Han had enough time to go to Tokyo, do all his stuff, get killed, and then 7 happened, and then now all of a sudden Elena and Dom have this baby that's clearly not even a year old. So the timeline does not make sense. It's honestly, as many plot holes as probably are throughout this entire series, this might actually be the biggest plot hole and the one that almost drives me the most crazy, because there's no way they had this baby. Or if they did, this baby should be much older at this point, because Brian and Mia had a baby and he went on to be 2 or 3 years old by the time part 7 rolls around, and somehow Dominic got Elena pregnant in part 6, which was before all that. So it just doesn't line up. It doesn't make any sense. It's a gripe I have with it, just because, I know they're using the baby as a plot device to, turn Dom over to the dark side, but it just doesn't work all that well when you really think about it, which a lot of this series honestly probably doesn't work that well once you really start to think about it. But yeah, like I said, I mean, this is a movie that has its moments here and there. It just doesn't have enough of them to make it a worthy entry in the series like some of the other ones. So overall, I would give this one about a 5.5 out of 10. There's still some fun things here and there. Like I said, there's good back and forth, especially between The Rock and Jason Statham. I like their dynamic that they build up. I hate the fact that The Rock and Vin Diesel, for whatever reason, share no on-screen moments together, because I guess they just disliked each other so much that they couldn't even shoot a single frame together outside of, a couple of small shots here and there where they're really not even in the same, in the same vicinity of one another. But that's beside the point. You do get the return of Kurt Russell, which is nice seeing him here. But they also introduce his son, played by Scott Eastwood, who is terrible in this movie, and just feels like they're trying to put in another blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy to replace Paul Walker. And unfortunately, it just comes off as like, why are we doing this? Like, you already had Brian in his nice send-off. You don't need to replace him with another white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. Like, we get it. He's not Brian. Stop forcing him on us. But yeah, that's about it, guys. If you have seen The Fate of the Furious, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more reviews, and I'll leave all my links down below on where you can follow me and check out more of my reviews. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.